Shadowbox TV here. I just wanted to make a video about obviously about an hour ago I watched the Adrian Broner versus Mikey Garcia fight again on YouTube. Obviously the fight happened around a month ago, so I just wanted to make a video on my thoughts on who I think Adrian Broner can fight again for his next fight, up and coming fight. So the general consensus online is that Adrian Broner's career is essentially over now on the elite level, that all the major paydays are literally finished for him, and he's essentially become a gatekeeper, and he's become like the poster boy for wasted potential within the sport of boxing. And there are some fans online that do tend to think that there's no way that Adrian Broner can win another world title again, basically. So basically his last fight against Mikey Garcia is his last major payday on that level, basically, where he can actually get that position, be put into a position where he can ever fight for that type of money again. And we need to remember that obviously the Mikey Garcia Adrian Broner fight was a pay-per-view fight, so I think it's fair to assume that it's probably true that he may not get like a massive payday like that again, $1 million payday again like that. But I think it's a bit disingenuous to think that his career is finished now, because he could still become a gatekeeper fighter who can still make decent money in the sport. Maybe not $1 million paydays, but he can still make decent money in the sport. So this video now is about who I think here is the top 5 opponents that Adrian Broner can fight, to actually his next fight, who we can actually fight to actually get a decent payday, decent enough payday, and fights that basically the fans are still willing to watch him actually fighting. So just to put it into perspective, do I think he can win a world title again? I think it is purely dependent upon Al Heyman's plan for Adrian Broner. One thing I don't think Al Heyman gets enough credit for is the fact that in terms of managing Adrian Broner's career, he's actually managed to make Adrian Broner win world titles in multiple weight classes and take really low risk for them world titles that he actually did win. So just to put it into perspective, if you ask most fans who did he actually beat to win the 4 world titles that he won in multiple different weight classes, most fans don't even remember the names of the opponents. The only legitimate opponent that you can say that he actually did fight to legitimate well-known opponent that you can say that he did actually fight to win a world title is against Paulie Malignaggi, who did actually fight for that fight. Who we did actually fight. That's the only opponent that we can actually remember him actually fighting that's decent enough. And there are loads of people that think that he actually lost that fight against Paulie. Even Mayweather had said after the fight that he wasn't impressed with that fight. Like Adrian Broner should have stopped him. So that's the only opponent out of all the 4 world title fights that he did fight that we can actually say is a well-known name. But one thing needs to be taken into consideration. A lot of people are saying that there's no way he could win a world title again. But the fact is, the other 3 times when he did win a world title, when he didn't fight an opponent that was well known by the public, he still managed to win a world title in them fights. So it could be possible that he can fight not an elite competition, but good enough competition where he can still pick up a world title. So I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility for him to win another world title. It can definitely happen if he fight, but it's all dependent upon Al Heyman's plans. Now, obviously, when Al Heyman did actually guide him through his career and did manage to get him them fights against them world title fights, right? It was from the perspective of him actually being a viable investment for Al Heyman. So Al Heyman was willing to invest money into Adrian Broner and managed to get him fights against that type of opposition, so that in the future, if Adrian Broner was to become a star, Al Heyman would recoup his losses for them investments. But obviously with Adrian Broner's losing his fights recently against every time he stepped up, I don't think it's likely that Al Heyman would actually be willing to put that much effort into Adrian Broner now. But just to think of it from the perspective of what could be 5 fights that he can actually fight to get his career out of obscurity. Here's 5 names that I believe he could actually literally fight, and is fights that the general public will be willing to look to watch him actually fight. So just to put it into perspective, these obviously there are different reasons why certain fights can't happen because of politics within the sport. But here are 5 fights that I think the general public would definitely be interested to watch him actually fight. So from the perspective of Adrian Broner, one other fight that I think he could actually fight is he could fight Lucas Matisse. Lucas Matisse is obviously coming off a loss to Victor Postal, and he did actually recently fight. Let me just see Lucas Matisse's record at this moment in time. Just bear with me a second. I'm on BoxRec right now. So obviously Lucas Matisse. Yeah, he's in a welterweight division. Lucas Matisse did actually fight against Emmanuel Taylor, and he did win that fight. But obviously he's bouncing back from his loss against Victor Postal. I think that's a great fight for both fighters. So both fighters are coming off a loss. Obviously technically speaking, Lucas Matisse is actually coming off a win against Emmanuel Taylor, who is a common opponent of Adrian Broner. So they both have fought Emmanuel Taylor, so there could be some angle in terms of looking at the fight from that perspective. I think that's one opponent that would be a literal fight for Adrian Broner. We need to remember at the time, right, before Lucas Matisse did fight Danny Garcia, a lot of people did think that Al Heyman would steer Adrian Broner away from Lucas Matisse, but now both of them are obviously vulnerable because they have come off literal losses against good opposition. So that could be a fight that's worth making. Another fight that is worth making that would be good for Adrian Broner from the perspective of fans could be obviously Andre Berto. Now Andre Berto did actually come off a loss against Sean Porter recently, but obviously if Andre Berto was to actually cut weight, or they could do a catchweight fight between Adrian Broner versus Andre Berto. Obviously both fighters are B-level fighters, but they're generally known between the public. Like the public do generally know them for fighting a literal opposition. So I think that's a good fight for both opponents to actually potentially do. Adrian Broner versus Andre Berto. It'll be a good fight for both of them, and whoever wins that fight, they could go on to fight for a world title or go for an eliminator. Another opponent that I think will be good in terms of build-up will be O'Hara Davis. Obviously, O'Hara Davis is gonna fight. Got a fight coming up within the Matchroom stable, but obviously he did come off a loss to Josh Taylor recently. So I think that's a great fight for both of them, because the build-up would be great. O'Hara Davis versus obviously Adrian Broner. Both of them talk a lot. The build up to the fight would be great. And another fight that I think would be great is obviously Terence Crawford, who's coming off his career high win against Indongo. Now a lot of people might say, Terence Crawford is levels above Adrian Broner in terms of world title ranking and everything. But the fact is, right, in terms of name recognition, if Terence Crawford was to fight Broner, I think that would be a great fight for both of them, because obviously Terence Crawford hasn't really broken into mainstream consensus, even though he's a legitimate pound for pound threat. It'll be a great fight for him to actually, if he was to beat Adrian Broner, it'll be a great fight for him to actually come out of obscurity in a sense, because he's not really crossed over to the American public so much. Another opponent may be Indongo or Postal. Both of them have lost to Terence Crawford recently, but it could be a good fight for Adrian Broner in some sense. With him able to take that fight, it would give him an opportunity to actually bounce back and obviously make a decent payday. Obviously both of them fights are promoted by Bob Arum, but I still think it's a fight that could potentially be made. So that's my musings. That's my thoughts on that. So just give your comments below on who you think Adrian Broner should fight next, and whether he can win a world title again. I think he can win a world title again, but it's all dependent upon Al Heyman, how he decides to actually steer his career, and whether he can actually put him into a position to actually get him a title shot. I don't put anything past Al Heyman. I believe he can actually do that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Adrian Broner. Obviously, it's a late video in the sense that the fight happened a month ago, but I still think it's worth revisiting that. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. So I've got more videos coming up, but so that is what that is. So yeah, I'll see you lot later. Peace out.